friends, how are you doing? So here we are with a new episode. Here we have a guest, Amanda Ingram, and she is a mindset coach. And today we are discussing how we can break the rules of fitness industry. Let's welcome Amanda. Hi, Amanda. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. It's so nice to be here. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for being with us. So tell us about yourself, how you are breaking the rules of fitness industry.
Yeah, so I started out as a running coach and a personal trainer, and ended up getting into pelvic floor fitness. And what I saw was we have all of these belief systems, and we're told certain things about exercise and moving our bodies. And especially, it was never more apparent to me than when I was helping people who just had children, how those belief systems can be really actually doing us a huge disservice in believing that it has to be hard and it has to be intense. And I'm really starting to explore that and looking into, well, why do we feel like we have to do it all and it has to be a certain way? And that kind of led me to looking at the rules that we have behind movement, and why we feel that it has to be a certain way. And it's been really interesting to kind of move forward, and it's helped me kind of become and get into this whole mindset coaching place where I am helping people who really feel lost when it comes to movement, or they have goals that they just aren't reaching, and they're not sure why they're caught in a cycle and why they're not enjoying it. And that can be something that is, I want to say, damaging for mindset and for how we feel as people. So what I like to do is really help people rebuild that relationship, identify rules that can be sabotaging them, and find the joy in moving their bodies again. And when we can do that, it's incredibly empowering and allows us to see ourselves differently and see that we actually are capable of far more than we thought possible. And that's been my experience personally, and with clients. So it's been really awesome.
Amanda, I'm thinking, did you have that kind of journey where you are suffering from these rules, or how did you start on this path?
Yeah, so when I first kind of started, I always kind of move my body a little bit, but something that for me is that stands out is my relationship with running. So from a very young age, my whole family would be like, we don't run. That's not our thing. We don't do it. And when I would go and try to do it in school, track and field day, it was terrible because I didn't enjoy it. And it kind of just furthered this belief system that, oh yeah, that's just not something that I can do. And I carried that forward for a very long time in my life until like my late 20s, when I kind of went, I want to do something. Like I want to prove that I am more, that I can do more. And running was what I chose. And so I just hopped on that treadmill and was like, all right, I'm going to run. And it was horrible because I cranked it up to what I thought was a running pace. I was like going to fall off the back of it. And I made it like 2 minutes before I was like, oh man, like this is not okay. And what I was doing was I was moving my body and running in a way that I felt like I should, and how I was told that running should be. So it's at a certain pace there. You don't walk. It should be hard before it's easy. And if I had have kind of stuck with that, I would have quit. But in that moment, I went, well, no, like that's not, I don't like that answer. And so what I decided to do was to start doing it in a way that felt good for me. So I started going at a pace that felt right for me. And I'd be lying if I said someone didn't like walk past me when I was out there, but it didn't matter because I was moving my body in a way that I wanted, and it actually felt good. And in that moment, something kind of shifted within me. And I realized that if I had been saying I couldn't do something for so long, and I just did, what else in my life was I doing that with? Like, what else was I saying I couldn't do that actually I could do if I just listened to myself and did it in a way that felt good for me? And so that was my big turning point. And actually, in fact, going slow ended up being like my superpower up until the point that I ran a 100-mile race. And I never would have done that if I had have really just listened to what I was told I was supposed to be doing. And that was incredibly powerful for me on many levels, and ended up kind of leading into me actually coaching people to do the same.
So here I'm listening that it's not about just fitness, it's about the daily confidence also, that you can do it.
Yes, and there's so much. I always talk about how when it comes to, for me it's running, but it can be any movement, that it's just so much more. And it's like this metaphor for life. And at the time, I knew things in my life were changing because I was choosing me, and I was running in a way that felt good. But it wasn't until much later that I've taken the moment to look back on these things and actually go, wow, like this is what was happening. I was actually choosing me. I was finding my voice and my confidence, and I was stepping out of this people-pleasing shell that I had been in for a very long time in my life. And when I was able to identify that and use it in my coaching and for myself, all of a sudden, all those things that took many years to do happen a lot faster, because I'm actually going, this is what I'm doing, this is how I'm doing it, and I'm actually using running as a tool, rather than kind of it being like this vessel that's getting me there. Instead, now I'm using it as like an actual tool that's helping me mentally and physically get the results that I want in my life.
That's great. So can you share with us, how can we use that movement or that running or any exercise to gain our confidence, our betterment? How can we do that?
Yeah. So what's really cool to do, and I have my clients do it, I've done it myself, is to write out what you feel about movement. What are your rules that you have about movement, about your body? From a young age, we are kind of fed this idea that the more the better, no pain, no gain, has to be intense. It's all about how we look. And those things, even if we don't agree with them, may still be rules that we carry. And this is something that in my research and kind of doing my own inner work, I came across with, it's a book called Too Nice by Dr. Aziz Gazipura. And he talks about these rules, and they're these shoulds. So, and what we have is our kind of inner police come in to tell us when we're breaking these rules. Again, it's whether we believe we are or not. So when I took a minute to write out my rules about running, it was like, I believe that I have to go fast. I believe that it should be enjoyable. I believe that you can't walk. So like, there's all of these things that are like, well, this isn't going to work. So, and it makes sense then that if we are carrying kind of these rules, or like, I have to lose weight to do this, or movement is punishment for the fact that I don't have discipline or that I don't look a certain way. When we're coming at it from that angle, we're kind of set up to fail, and we may not be able to identify why it is that we don't feel good, or why we're pushing ourselves beyond what we feel comfortable with. So it's kind of allowing us, and we're not just going to go, okay, these are my shoulds, I'm getting rid of all of these, done. It's more the idea that we're going to just identify them so that we understand when we're not feeling so great, and when maybe we don't find that motivation, or we find ourselves maybe back at the start again going, what happened? Why am I here again? We have a little bit more information and reasoning why. And there's a lot of messaging in the fitness industry that is about that it's all about how you look, and you just didn't have enough discipline and all of these things. And if you just hunker down and you start this intense workout 5 days a week, exercise program with a diet, all of that stuff, life is magically going to get better. And that's just not the case. And it doesn't work. So when you do start out in movement, it's identifying those rules. So what are your shoulds? Then you can go to the next level of identifying what you actually want it to be. And that is I have the right. So I have the right to enjoy running. I have the right to walk and not feel guilty about it. I have the right to run at whatever pace I want and have that be considered running, right? So all of these things that we can refer back to. And then when you actually start the movement, it's kind of going, well, how does it feel? Because if it feels restrictive, if it's stressing you out, and if it's not enjoyable and you feel like you're going to keel over every time, or you're in such intense pain you can't sit down after a workout, then there's a good chance that you're not going to stick with that, because it just doesn't fit in. So what I tend to do with people is, when we do start, it depends on where you're at. So whether you're just starting back to movement, or if you have something that you really enjoy or you used to enjoy, but you're kind of really struggling with it now, it's figuring out a way to just look within for a little bit. So I always ask what would you do if nobody else's opinion mattered? So if nobody else mattered, what would you be doing right now? Is it even this? Like, is it even in a gym lifting weights, or is it even running on a treadmill? Because we forget that movement isn't always that. Movement can be having a dance party with your kids. Movement can be can be dancing. It can be hiking. It can be walking. All of these things are beneficial. We've just started to go to the extreme. And while there's benefit to going to the extreme, because we're showing ourselves what we are capable of, and there's so much confidence building within that world, if there's no base here where we actually enjoy what we're doing, we're not going to stick with it. Or at the end, we're going to stop and then be back at square one going, well, what do I do now? Or feeling bad that we couldn't have stuck with it when we said we would. So it's about looking within and kind of going, well, how do I feel? What do I want? What do I need? And starting to move our bodies in that way, and usually in the beginning, it's taking away the structure, taking away the tracking, taking away that strict, rigid schedule, and just moving for the joy of it, which can be interesting, especially if you don't actually know what movement you enjoy. Because I've asked people and I'm like, well, what do you enjoy? And it's all about finding that out and then doing it in a way that feels good for you, rather than with jumping right into this like strict program. That can be helpful too.
Okay, so Amanda, the question is, everyone wants to be healthy and slim. Ladies want slimness, right?
Yeah.
So how can we incorporate exercise which doesn't hurt us and give us that right amount of weight, right kind of body we want? Because it's a stress point for ladies, like, oh, I need to remove these 5 lbs, or I have to look like this way. So can you help us in that? How can we, who doesn't want to exercise kind of ladies, or in some cases ladies do exercise, but they somehow not losing weight.
Mm-hmm. So there's been a shift in the fitness industry, actually, where they've shifted away from coaching weight loss, because it's actually been proven that it doesn't work. So what I tend to look at and dive a little bit deeper into is the belief system that smaller is better, and where that comes from. And also this moving forward, we are kind of told that, yeah, like when we look a certain way, like, as I said, like life gets better. And so we have a whole generation of women who are like, I need to look a certain way to feel better. And when we're solely moving our bodies with that intention, it tends to not be very successful. There's a huge failure rate when it comes to just moving because I want to look like I want to lose weight. So what my focus is and what I encourage everybody to shift is 100%. Like, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to want to lose weight, because that's what we're told it's important. And in some cases, for sure. But when you start on that journey, it's shifting it to moving your body because your body is powerful, like that inner strength idea. Because movement is super important. And the benefits are huge. And we tend to hear about the physical benefits of moving, which there's tons for our cardiovascular system, all of that great stuff, building up metabolism. And But what we sometimes forget about is the feeling side of it. So moving our bodies boosts our energy. It lowers stress and anxiety. It actually has us return back to our families, to our partners, communities, more willing to help. And that comes back from like hunter-gatherer days. And those are really great benefits as well. So when we can start to shift away from movement and exercise as punishment to movement and exercise is celebration, or is just really honoring our bodies in movement and doing it in a way that feels good, then we start to kind of shift away from looks to function in our bodies. And now, that being said, that's going to help you move consistently over time, rather than kind of these short bursts of movement that are super intense and they don't work long term. This is more of a, yes, it's a longer road. It just is. Quick fixes, unfortunately, we're sold them all the time. They do not work. So it's a longer journey, but it's one where if you could move at your body every single day consistently in a way that makes you feel good in your body and encourages you to also want to fuel your body to help with that movement and to feel good because you're feeling good and confident in your body and how it moves, then over time, can that result in what you're looking to do? Potentially, yes. You may change the way your body looks. But when the focus is shifted away from that a little bit, it's not as it has to happen kind of idea.
Mm-hmm. So do you have any movement coaching or movement structure which we can follow or something?
So I do. So I have a program that's called Run Your Life. And what that ends up starting out with is actually going back to intuitive movement. So it's what you can do is over the course of 14 days, you start out by just writing out all the movement you enjoy. And then you can categorize that into easy, moderate, hard. And what I mean is we take into account everything. Like, do you have to get dressed, get ready to go out and take everybody out to a forest for a hike or something? Or is it you can do it in your house? So we take all of these things into account on top of the intensity.
Uh-huh.
So we categorize all of those. And then what we do every single day is you say, okay, I woke up, how do I feel today? And depending on that answer, you decide what you're gonna do. So when we start, it can literally be 1 minute of movement a day. It can. Sometimes we want to start with more. It all depends. If you're feeling great, lots of energy, 100%, be an hour of movement. But just to start out, it can be anything. And then we're going to choose from our list depending on how we feel. And that's what we're going to do. And we're going to do it in a certain time. And then it's we tune in, try, and track. So the tune in part is, how do I feel today? Then the tries, we go and try it. And then we track. So we see, how did I feel before and how do I feel after? Mm-hmm. And so on days that you're feeling energetic and you went out and you feel great afterwards, you're like, yes, amazing. And then some days you may not pick the right thing. You may just be like, I was tired. I felt like I should move my body. So I did something intense. Now I feel worse. Show up with compassion. Just be like, okay, that is what it is. But what we do is it's building a trust, number one, with ourselves, that we actually do know what we need. And when we are getting it right, it feels really good. And then the other side too is that you're choosing you every single day. And that can be really important too. So when we're doing that, and what I do recommend too is if you already have a movement you enjoy, do this within that movement. So you can just kind of ask when you're going out to do that movement, how do I feel today? So for me with running, I go, how do I feel today? Do I really feel like doing the full training plan today? Do I feel like maybe I just need to get away from the training plan altogether and just go out and enjoy it? 9 times out of 10, the people I work with need to just put the training plan away and do what feels good for them so that they can rediscover the joy of the movement that they started doing in the first place. So it can be either way. So you can use it in terms of the movement you're already doing or you really enjoy. Because if you know this one movement is it for you and you love it, great. And you can also try out different things. And that's kind of the fun of this too, is if you don't know what you enjoy, try out a ton of different stuff, whether that's, like I said, dancing, hiking, whatever you want to try to do, lifting, whatever works for you. And then, do that for 14 days. And it creates a habit where you're doing that, you're choosing yourself, you're getting a list of movement that you really enjoy doing. And then you can move forward through that. Usually I bring the structure back in. So if there's something that you really enjoy, that's what you can start to focus on and go forward there and use that as a tool in your life.
Okay. So basically it's a 14 days tune in.
Yeah.
And track.
Yeah. So tune in, track, or try and track.
Try and track.
Yeah.
So after that, what should we do? Or that's it, just take it as it is?
No, that's kind of the starting point. So this is helping us just kind of rebuild that relationship with movement, identify what rules we have. So stuff comes up in those 14 days where you kind of go, oh, I really felt like I needed to do more on a day that I'm exhausted. Why? And it's being really inquisitive with ourselves. And I like to use the movement too in like a way of giving you what you need. So what we do is when we build that strong base, then we can set goals. And then that can help us get to those goals with that knowledge that we do actually know how to move our bodies in a way that's enjoyable. So now let's bring that structure back in so that we can take those next steps. So maybe that you pick a goal with the movement that you have.
So let's take all the people, all the ladies have at least 5 LV losing goal, right? So can you help us in that?
So when it comes to the weight loss side of things, for me, that would be just get out and move every day. So when we're kind of building that relationship of movement, get out and move and see how it feels. Get rid of the scale for a bit. We don't need to be weighing ourselves every single day.
Right.
That can get really frustrating because your weight can actually fluctuate like 5 pounds in a day, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. So just move and see what it feels like without the pressure of the weight loss. Mm-hmm. So what we're going to do is we're going to separate those two things. And I understand that the weight loss is the goal. And it can be hard to just be like, I'm going to take a pause on this and just move. So it's just shifting that focus for a little bit and paying attention to how does my body feel when I just move it, and recognizing that you can do things and your body can move. And it's really quite an amazing thing. While also, with having that in the background as well, but just letting that go for 14 days if you can, and then seeing where you're at. Because we just need to know that we can move without it being a punishment or without it being something that we didn't have enough, like I said, enough discipline or enough of, we weren't enough. So we have to use movement to kind of help us be enough. We're enough all on our own with movement. And then when we get to kind of that end of the 14 days, then you can go, okay, so do I still feel the same way? Do I still feel like I need to lose 5 pounds? Okay, if I do, then you can start a program if you'd like. You could start moving your body in a specific way to do that. But just now with that knowledge that your body's pretty awesome as it is today. And it's okay to not be happy with our bodies while we're working on our bodies. Like that's totally okay too. It's just shifting that movement idea so you can start to actually get to those goals, or see if those goals change as you go. Just because I know if we're kind of coming from that place of I dislike myself and I'm moving because I'm unhappy with myself, so I'm just going to get out there and do it because I'm so mad at myself. Right. It rarely works long term. It may work short term and you may see some results, and then we kind of get back on that cycle again, and all of a sudden we've gained back the weight, maybe we've gained even more weight, we're back at the start going, what the actual F has happened? I'm so mad. And we get frustrated. So it's just shifting that mindset a little bit to start to see ourselves differently. And I think that's where the power lies. It's just in seeing ourselves differently and in maybe shifting the why behind why we're moving and making it just a little bit deeper.
Oh, I saw that having the pain in body or some discomfort make us not to move. Do you have some tips and tricks we can use to move with the pain and discomfort?
Yeah, and that kind of goes into the movement doesn't have to look a certain way. So it's depending on if it's like if you're in chronic pain or if you're injured, it's this idea of there is a way to still move, to still feel good. Maybe good's not the right word, but there is a way to continue to move. It's just about modifying it. And sometimes it can be really frustrating if we're focusing on what we can't do. I've worked with people who have chronic pain who their focus was on all the things they couldn't do and all the things they used to be able to do. And that was very frustrating for them. And for them, that meant that they were doing nothing because they were just like, well, if I can't do what I used to do, if I can't be who I used to be, forget it. And what I encourage you to do is to try to be present and go, okay, this is me now. What can I do right now? And I always believe that there's something you can do. There's something. It may not look the same as it used to, but we're kind of taking it as the starting point is right now, today. The person you were before all of this happened, we're not thinking about them. That is not the pedestal upon which we are dictating our success. It's right now and moving forward. So really figuring out what does feel good. So maybe I'll go back to running again, but if maybe running you can't do it anymore because your knees you have something wrong with your knees and it's really it's really upsetting. Walking, hiking, biking. Like there's other options of things that we can do when we allow ourselves to let go of that and what we think it should look like and making it what we want it to look like. And that can really shift how you see yourself, how you see your body, and allow you to really feel more capable and feel empowered at a time that you may not be feeling very empowered at all.
Right. I like that idea that when you don't do anything, you feel like I'm nothing. And when you move a little bit, just a bit, and you change your mindset that, yes, I can do it. And Absolutely. It's a long journey, but I can do it.
It is. And that's part of that idea of when we do something like really intense, it kind of falls into that all or nothing. And if it's so intense and we feel like we have to do that, and it feels like it's too much, we're probably going to choose the nothing if it's all or nothing. Mm-hmm. And that's where that flexibility comes in, and that knowledge that like it doesn't actually have to be this strict program. And whether that's you're telling your trainer or someone you're working with, a coach, that like it's too much, they should be there to be like, okay, here's an alternative, or the exercise isn't enjoyable. Okay, here's an alternative. Like there's always something else we can do, even if that's changing the timeline to be a little bit longer, but you're still going to reach that goal. And isn't it nice to actually reach that goal feeling good and confident rather than like falling across like the finish line going, I'm never doing that again, right? So it's like, it's changing this to kind of being more like this. We're getting off that roller coaster of quick fixes, if you will.
So can you tell us the challenges you face when you work with your clients?
So a lot of the challenges that we come upon is just that old idea of what it should be, and that it has to be a certain way. That is an ingrained thing that we work really hard to identify and really move beyond. And just this fear of judgment and the shame that kind of comes along with that, and this idea of caring about what everybody else thinks, because most of the time when we are kind of jumping into these big things, we're coming from a place of disliking ourselves. The motivation isn't internal, the motivation is external. Whether that's we want to look a certain way so we fit in, or because we've told that's a certain marker that we have to reach to live the life that we've always wanted, or that idea that it has to be hard. And when we're kind of in like living in those mindsets, that it's not helping us, and we end up on a much deeper level feeling like failures and that we're not enough. And for a lot of the clients who I work with, I tend to work with a lot of people who spend a lot of time being really worried about what other people think, and they want to make them happy, and they want that validation. So what ends up happening is they feel like they're not enough, and that feeds into a really deep-seated feeling of being not enough, that they've probably carried from a fairly young age. And we use the movement to show them, and it's kind of like what we talked about with the weight loss, of the idea that you are enough today as you are. Your self-worth was with you when you were born. It has gone nowhere. We get told that we're giving away our self-worth and we're attaching it to outcomes and to numbers on scales and to sizes on our clothing. But the truth of the matter is that worth has gone nowhere. Nothing has changed with who we are, and that we are enough, and that we are amazing and capable. But we're told that's not the case, and we, in our minds, give away our self-worth to things. And that's why when outcomes don't happen, when we don't reach the scale at a certain number, it feels like it hits us in like a really deep place of like, that's our self-worth. So we're not worthy because we didn't do it. And the shame that comes along with that. And so it's really shifting that away from what everybody else thinks to just you inside, and acknowledging the fact that worth is always there. And through movement, starting to see that. And when we talk about making the movement your own and actually choosing yourself, it's showing yourself that you are enough all on your own, and that your body can carry you, and that in fact your body is actually probably the most uninteresting thing about you as a human being, because there's so much more going on in there, like your personality and who you are and all this awesome stuff. And your body is like this awesome vessel that helps you in your life. And that's what I aim to have movement be for people, is this celebration of this amazing body that moves in such a way. And even I understand, even if there's people who are in pain and their bodies maybe don't function the way they want them to, but it's shifting that thought process from, well, what can it do, and see what you can do, because you are worthy, you are enough, and you are capable. And that is the power that that movement can give us when we utilize it as a tool in that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks for
sharing. That's my long-winded answer for you.
So can you tell us any book or anything you want to suggest for like taking on?
For sure. I really enjoy The Joy of Movement by Jenny McGonigal. If you kind of want to dive a little bit more into just why we feel the way we feel when we move, it's pretty cool. And if anybody's interested in people-pleasing side of it, like that worthiness, that not enough, it's The Not Nice by Dr. Aziz Gazipur is another one that I really enjoy. And if you are interested in more of like the weight loss and kind of breaking free of diet culture, there is I'm not going to be able to think of it right now, of course, the Intuitive Eating Guide.
Intuitive Eating.
Yeah. So that's
by?
Oh, I cannot for the life of me remember, but it's like the main one. I'm positive it's by a doctor, and I cannot for the life of me think of who wrote it. Actually, I think it's sitting right beside me, but I can't get it right now.
It's okay.
But yeah, that can be just to get an idea about kind of how diet culture influences us, and how you can kind of break free of diets if that's something you're interested in. I am not an intuitive eating counselor, but I will sometimes connect my clients with people if that is the journey that they'd like to go on.
Okay, nice. Thank you.
Thank
you.
It
was awesome.
This was so fun.
It was great to have you, Amanda.
Thank you.
Nice
It was wonderful
to be
being
with
here.
you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.